Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Delivering Activities Online from the Geriatric Curriculum to Teach Sensitivity and Care Across the Lifespan. It is 11, so we will get started. My name is Emily Klinsky. I am on the marketing team here at Realityworks. Presenting today, we have Denise DuBois, our RealCare product manager. She has been with Realityworks for 10 years and is a frequent presenter, trainer, and blogger, all things related to RealCare baby and health sciences. Denise has over 20 years of education, marketing, product design, and curriculum writing experience, so she's a pretty great resource for today's webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple things. First, today's presentation is being recorded and all attendees will receive a link to that recording as well as the handouts that Denise will be going over. We will have time at the end for a Q&A session, so if you have any questions during this, please write them down or feel free to write them in the chat and we will go over those at the end. With that being said, I'm going to pass things over to Denise.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome to today's webinar on delivering online from the geriatric curriculum. Now, we know that we're living in really different times right now than a few months ago, and many of us have been challenged to deliver content online to students. So we hope today to just give you a few ideas from taking from our geriatric simulation curricula and activities into this online delivery format. So here are 4 curricula that our geriatric simulation customers usually have access to, and there are even more than that. And each one has a different focus. So we're going to take some lessons and activities from each of these and share ways that we can hopefully teach some of this content online. Now, there are 3 different sections in each of our lesson templates that all lessons follow. Doesn't matter which curricula you're looking at, these are the 3 main sections. So the focus section is that initial 5 to 10 minutes of the lesson. It's capturing students' attention, getting them engaged. Then we move on to a learn section, which is usually the first or the middle 30 minutes or so, where we're teaching those key objectives to students in the lesson. And then the lessons will wrap up with a summary or a review type of activity. It might be a short quiz. It could be posing a key question that they have to ponder and answer. But these are basically the 3 sections that are in all of the lessons. So once you see how one lesson is laid out, all of them will look familiar thereafter. Now, before we begin with that first lesson, I wanted to share this access site with you all. This link is the company response to the coronavirus. We have made all of our curricula and product guides available as a resource for every product we have. So it no longer matters if you're a customer or not of any of our geriatric simulators. You can go to this link here. There's a screenshot on the right that shows where to access the Family and Consumer Science resources at that link. And if you scroll down, you will get to the geriatric curricula link. And when you click on that, you will see geriatric arthritis, geriatric hearing impairment, geriatric tremor, and geriatric simulator, and there's even more. So everything that we're going to cover today, you can find under that section. So don't worry if we talk about a handout or information for teachers in the facilitator guide or slide presentations, you will have access to all of that. So this is your link, and we recommend that you may even want to save it as a favorite so you don't have to keep typing it in each and every time that you want to access your lessons. So now let's take a look at a lesson from our curriculum that accompanies our geriatric simulation suite and also our arthritis simulator. This one focuses on the impact of aging on bones and joints. So here's a list of the lessons found in our geriatric experience curriculum. Now, this curriculum begins with career exploration lessons regarding geriatric and gerontology careers. Then the lessons move on to many physical aspects of aging, culminating in a fully immersive experience. Now, the lesson that we're going to pull out and highlight the content from and activities is the one on impact of aging on bones and joints. And don't worry if you don't have a geriatric simulator or even our arthritis simulator, there is still a lot of value in the activities provided in the lesson. So again, here are those 3 parts that we spoke about earlier. For the focus section, the intro thing, for this lesson, there's a brief quiz, and that's to give you an idea of what do students already know about the impact of aging on bones and joints. Then you go on to the middle section where you talk about what happens to bones and joints as you age, and that is where your students would have that arthritis simulation experience. And we are going to share some ideas for how they can do that activity at home. And then this lesson completes with a reflection activity at the end. They think about the simulation experience that they've gone through, and they'll answer some key reflective questions. So this is where we start our lesson. This is that 5-minute activity that engages those students. So the purpose behind this activity is to see what your students already know and understand about topics like arthritis and how bones and joints are impacted as people age. To explain to students, you'll need to explain to students that during the lesson, they're going to learn more about how aging impacts range of motion, flexibility, and strength from changes to the bones and joints. They will have the chance to experience what it feels like firsthand. Now, this quiz could be formatted in a Google Classroom as a quiz. Now, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to retype it. You also have access to our answer key in the curriculum. Or another way you could do this is take a screenshot and post it as a PDF for students to access in your LMS system. If you're really not even doing something that fancy, you could even email it. So there's a lot of different ways that your students could access this very brief quiz. Again, remember you have access at that link provided. And of course, if you have either the geriatric simulator or our sensory impairment kit, you can also find it in those lessons as well. So the next part of the lesson begins by sharing information on 2 different slides and giving some background information on the impact of aging on bones and joints. So these slides could be shared in an LMS system or Google Classroom. They could be posted as material to review for students to review on their own. You also have access to the following background information that you could also share orally through an audio clip or a video clip if you'd like to prepare your own. So I'm going to read the background information that goes with these 2 slides so you get an idea of how long that would be and the kind of information that you'd perhaps like to share with students as they view these. Bone is living tissue. As we age, the structure of bone changes, and this results in loss of bone tissue. Low bone mass means that bones are weaker and places people at risk of breaks from a sudden bump or fall. Many aging adults are susceptible to osteoarthritis, and this is the type of arthritis that affects bones by wearing down the cushion that pads the space between them. Bones become less dense as we age for the number of reasons, including an inactive lifestyle, calcium and other minerals are lost, hormonal changes in women, hormonal changes in men. Osteoporosis is a disease of low bone density that can have an increased risk of fracture. And according to the National Osteoporosis Foundation, osteoporosis and low bone mass affect 54 million Americans. So many aging adults are at risk for developing osteoarthritis. And this is the type of arthritis that affects bones by wearing down the pads of space between them. So in a joint, the space between the bones is cushioned by cartilage that lines your joints. There are other membranes and lubricating fluid in and around your joints. So as you age, joint movement becomes stiffer and less flexible because the amount of that lubricating fluid inside your joints decreases and the cartilage becomes thinner. So ligaments also tend to shorten and lose some flexibility, making joints feel stiff. So that is what you have in your facilitator guide as background information that you can be sharing with your students. Now, this simulation activity is adapted from our geriatric simulation suite curriculum and also the arthritis simulator curriculum. Because students will not have the simulator at home, we'll show you how you can use commonly found objects in the home to create an arthritis simulation experience for your students. Now, you'll have access to all of the handouts that go with this at the link that I shared with you earlier. So share the following information with your students in writing, which is found in the facilitator instructions. This could be posted as material to read in an LMS, or you could share it orally prior to the simulation activity. The impact of aging on bones and joints in the hands and feet is especially significant. This is because of the amount we use our hands and feet in our day-to-day activities. The most common form of age-related pain and stiffness in hands and feet is osteoarthritis, and it happens over time due to age. Osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis, affecting millions of people worldwide. It occurs when the protective cartilage on the ends of your bones wear down over time. Getting older is the greatest risk factor of osteoarthritis, but it doesn't have to be an inevitable consequence. There are things you can do to slow the progression. Staying active with regular exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, and other treatments may slow progression of the disease and help improve pain and joint function. So now you're going to have students access the following items in their home if possible. You're going to also have students access the arthritis experience chart that can be found in the lesson. Again, this can be saved on an LMS system, emailed for students to fill out, but it's the document that they will use to document their simulation experience as they go through it. So some of those commonly found items that we're going to task our students with trying to gather in their homes will be some type of tape, transparent tape, even duct tape, scissors, a pen. If they can have either a pill bottle or some kind of a bottle with a twist cap will be helpful. Pair of glasses, could be sunglasses, coins, gloves, an envelope, socks, and if they're able to, having unpopped popcorn kernels, it could be dried or frozen peas, something that's little, round, and hard. If they don't even have that, they could go out and get some small pieces of gravel if they even had to. So those are the things we're going to want for that simulation experience. So moving on to the next slide. Here's what we're going to do. For the simulation assignment, you'll need to share some of the following information about the procedure for conducting each of the several simulation experiences. So experience number 1, explain that they will be feeling what it is like to have arthritic hands. So have each student get that tape and have the students get help taping the thumb and the index finger together of their non-dominant hand. And then also tape the 3 other joint fingers of their dominant hand together. Now, if tape isn't even available, they could use something like rubber bands, anything to bind those different groups of fingers together could be used. What this is going to do, this is going to restrict the movement and fine motor skills. It's going to simulate stiffness due to arthritis. Now, students will record the impact on their movement, how they felt, and how this would affect their daily life. So they're going to try the different activities. They're going to do things like cut with a scissors, try to write their name with a pen, try to open a child-proof pill bottle, or try to open a twist cap off of a bottle. Maybe it's ketchup or something like that. We want them to try to drink from a glass that hopefully is filled with some kind of a liquid, and then pick up and try to count some small change. So that, again, becomes very, very difficult to do with their restricted range of motion that they're feeling in their hands. So that's their experience number 1. Now, experience number 2 is the hands also may experience a loss of sensation associated with aging. The sense of touch also includes being aware of pain, temperature, pressure, vibration, body position. Skin, muscles, tendons, joints, and internal organs have nerve endings that detect these sensations. And with aging, you may have reduced or changed sensations. So you're going to explain that they will be experiencing a loss of sensation in their hands. So have students put on a pair of gloves. These might be thin disposable gloves. They might even be light winter gloves. But hopefully if they can find a pair of gloves, then again, have them go back and try these activities. Again, try to cut with the scissors, try to write your name with a pen, try to open up that bottle, try to drink from a glass, open an envelope, pick up and count change. Now, the next step to this experience is going to be to try to fill those gloves with those unpopped popcorn kernels. If they do that, that's going to dull the finger's ability to also feel simulating arthritis. And you're going to have them put those in the tips of the gloves, put them back on, and then perform those same activities once again. So that's experience number 2. Now you're going to have experience number 3, and that's all about the feet. So think about the average amount of time you spend on your feet in a lifetime. By the time we reach age 65, most of us will have walked more than 75,000 miles 3 times around the equator and bore 7 million tons of weight on our feet. Over time, this does take a toll on the feet, and it alters the structure of the feet. So here are some of the most common changes that occur in the feet that you'd want to share with your students. Increase in foot size and width. Bottoms of the feet feel, or they lose that fatty pad that cushions the feet and the skin becomes thinner. Flattening of the arch. Ligaments and tendons become looser and weaker. Dry, flaky skin. Thick and discolored toenails and crooked toes and feet. So explain to students that today they're going to walk a mile in an aging person's shoes in order to understand and empathize with what geriatric patients or aging adults experience. So the condition will be simulated from the list just shared, but it's the bottom of the feet. It's going to simulate bottoms of the feet losing those fatty pads that cushion feet and the skin becoming thinner. So now is when you're going to find that popcorn, unpopped popcorn, or there's dried peas if possible, or even the little pieces of gravel if they have to find those. And you're going to place those in a sock or in the sole of a shoe, and you're going to put the shoe on. And this is going to simulate the pain associated with age-related loss of those fatty pads. Have them walk a short distance around the room. The popcorn kernels, or these small things placed in the socks or shoes, simulate the foot pain associated with poor circulation, neuropathy, and arthritis. So again, as an alternative, if they don't have peas or popcorn, gravel or rock from outside would work just as well. So those are 3 do-it-yourself, very easy ways for students to be able to simulate some of those painful impacts of aging on the hands and the feet. So the review activity at the end of this lesson gives your students a chance to reflect on the experience. So you'd give each student access to the impact of aging on hands and feet reflection handout. Again, it can be posted in an LMS, could turn it into a Google Doc or an assignment and post it in the classwork section on Google Classroom. You could even turn this into a class discussion by posting the questions in someplace like a chat, where students are allowed to share some of their insights and experiences from the answers to the questions, and then allow other students to comment on them. So you can see how you could take a lesson like this one, impact of aging on bones and joints, and you really can get all that content out to students in some manner. And if they're having that at-home learning experience, they can still do some kind of a modified simulation activity. So now let's take a look at a lesson from our curriculum that accompanies our geriatric simulation suite and also our hearing impairment simulator. And this one will focus on the impact of hearing impairment on aging adults. So here's a listing of the lessons that we have in that geriatric experience curriculum. And you can see we're highlighting lesson number 5, which is the hearing loss one. We know that there are many different online or remote teaching environments that teachers are being called upon and find themselves teaching within now. So we're hoping, again, to give you some ideas of ways that you could take this content and share it with students so that they learn about hearing loss in aging adults. This lesson will begin by sharing some slides and background information about causes of age-related hearing loss. The middle section is when they will participate in a hearing loss simulation activity. And then the last activity of the lesson is where you will be sharing information to them, and they'll be learning about hearing assistive devices that are available to aging adults. So this part of the lesson begins by sharing background information about the causes and signs of age-related hearing loss. Now, you could post the information found in the curriculum as material or content that your students could read independently. Share this statistic though. Approximately 1 in 3 people in the United States between the ages of 65 and 74 have hearing loss, and nearly half of those older than 75 have difficulty hearing. So you can ask your students what they think causes age-related hearing loss. Now, students might write it down on their own, see how many they can identify. And there are many short videos available on YouTube that can also be used to share the causes and signs of age-related hearing loss. So you've got some of the information, of course, in the slide presentation and your lecture notes in your curriculum. But again, YouTube videos are just a terrific source. And I've got 2 different fairly short recommendations and links up on the screen for you to consider. But you can post these as information again, or even share it orally. But these are some of the ones you're going to find in the curriculum. Certain medications that are toxic to sensory cells in the ears can cause it. Noise-induced loss caused by long-term exposure to loud sounds. High blood pressure, diabetes, changes to the inner ear or changes to the middle ear, changes to nerve pathways from ear to brain, and even a combination of age-related loss and noise-induced loss. So regardless of the cause, if you work with older adults on a job someday, or even in your family, these may be signs of age-related hearing loss that you can share with them. So on slide 20, which is on the screen in front of you and you have access to, you could post this as a PDF, or you could do a screenshot and record each of the following signs if you'd like. But again, these are some of the signs students should learn about. Would be misunderstanding what others are saying, asking people to repeat themselves, straining to understand a conversation, difficulty hearing when on the phone or difficulty hearing when there's a lot of background noise, difficulty following a conversation when 2 or more people speak at once. Others may seem to mumble or not speak clearly. Also, when they tend to turn the TV volume up too high than normal. Those are all some signs. So the next part of the lesson is the hearing loss simulation experience. Now, the purpose of this activity is to have your students experience age-related hearing loss. Students will gain a greater sensitivity and empathy for the impact hearing loss can have on a daily life of an older adult if they go through it themselves. So you're going to have your students gather as many of the following materials as possible. Cotton balls, earplugs, noise canceling headphones, any of those kind of things that can dull the hearing would be very, very helpful. And you're going to give each of your students access to the thing in the curriculum. There's a page called Hearing Loss Reflection. Again, this could be posted online. You could send it to them in email, but these are things that students should answer the questions after completing the hearing loss simulation activity, and they can turn it into you. So they're going to use things like cotton balls, earplugs, or those noise canceling headphones and do some of the following activities to simulate hearing loss. You're going to put those in or on, play some music, try to talk to another person, have someone give them instructions and see if they can hear them clearly and understand. Have your students try to talk on a cell phone with someone, or even play background music and try to talk to someone. So all of these things, when their hearing is dulled or impaired in some way, become very, very difficult. Now, even as a last measure, if they don't have any of those things, earplugs, the headphones, cotton balls, they could simply stick their fingers in their ears if they had to and do some of these activities. And again, it would dull it enough so that they could try to understand what that is like. Now, the tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, can be simulated by simply playing a high-pitched sustained noise of some sort. There are several tinnitus simulation videos available on YouTube, and I posted a link for one up there that I found. But there are many more if you just do a Google search or a YouTube search on tinnitus simulations. So the one that I have for you on the screen there is one that actually plays 10 different tinnitus tones. So hearing loss over time is something that can be simulated again by also gradually turning down the volume on a device using music or even the sound of voices on the TV. Now, there are loads of hearing loss simulation videos available that take your students through what it's like from moderate to profound hearing loss. Now, these are very short, and you can see all the ones that I have up there on the screen are around a minute. You could embed these in your LMS system in the lesson. You could email them. You could put them out on Google Classroom for students to listen to. The 3 that I got here I like because they all take you from, quote, what's considered normal hearing all the way through to profound hearing loss. And the first one is kind of features a vintage Chevrolet commercial, and it's a lot of singing and jingle kind of stuff, kind of a fun one. The middle one is just an instrumental piece, but again, it will take them through that all the way to profound hearing loss in that minute of time. The last one, which I'm going to play for you now, and I hope that the internet will be kind to me this morning, is only 53 seconds, but it's a clip from the Flintstones. And again, as we watch it, you'll note that it goes from what's considered a normal hearing level down to profound levels of difficulty. And I'm not doing anything here to change the volume. Students just simply will listen to it, and you'll see how that happens during these 53 seconds. So I'm going to click on it now, and I'm going to hope that I can access it. Okay. Oh, we're going to skip the ad. And we're going to go, okay, here's the clip starting now. So it kind of shows you the decibel levels from normal to profound, and then it will go into the clip.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Aha! You're on my apartment building on Granite Avenue. You owe me $300. Get it up?
Take it easy. It's only a game.
Well, I'm just like them big tycoons.
you can see in just that 45-second clip or so how much muffled and how difficult it was to hear. So if your students can try to listen to something like that and really understand what it would be like on a daily basis if they had to live with that, that would be really, really difficult. I'm getting some interference here. Just a moment, please. Okay, back to our webinar here. So again, you can see how those simulation videos can really make things very interactive and impactful for your students. So participants will learn about, in the end of the final activity is to learn about those various assistive devices that can help your older student or help students understand what it's like for older adults that suffer from hearing loss. And these things can help them hear better or deal with it more effectively. So first of all, you're going to have slide 21 that you have access to, and that's on the screen in front of you. So some of the steps you're going to go through is sharing this content, and then you're going to ask your students if they have anyone in their families have ever used an assistive device to help them with their hearing. And you're going to go through each of the assistive devices listed on the slide. So we've got, hearing aids, cochlear implants, and so forth. Again, you could post the slide with the written information from the curriculum materials for independent reading. You could show the slide and record a video of you reading the information in the background and post it for students. Because there are so many different variations in your learning environment, you'll have to use what works best for you in your situation to get the information into the students' hands. So for hearing aids though, you could say, these are electronic instruments you wear behind your ear or in your ear to amplify sound. This is some of the information that's shared in the facilitator guide for you. Cochlear implants are small electronic devices that are surgically implanted in the inner ear to help provide a sense of sound to deaf or severely hard of hearing people. Bone anchored hearing systems, these bypass the ear canal and middle ear to use your natural body's ability to transfer sound through bone conduction. Assistive listening devices, these can be used with things like phones, tablets, or a system in a theater or auditorium. These help to amplify the sounds that you want to hear. Lip reading or even speech reading help people that's where people pay close attention as they watch the speaker's mouth and body movements. So if you provide care to older adults experiencing hearing loss or patients, what could you do to be helpful or make things easier for them? So that's a question you could pose as a writing assignment or even as a shared discussion topic. You could share some of these thoughts with students. Hearing loss really does interfere with daily living significantly, and it can be difficult to understand and follow a doctor's advice. It can be dangerous when it means that the person doesn't hear things like phones, doorbells, or smoke alarms. It can lead to a feeling of even isolation when it's hard to talk to family and friends. So this is one that can be a really impactful lesson for your students to be able to go through, even in an online format. The third lesson that we want to highlight today is taking a look at adapting our lesson from our Geriatric sensory impairment kit. And this is on our also goes along with our tremor simulator, and it's called Understanding Tremor in the Elderly. Remember, again, you have access to this at that link, and this will focus on the impact of essential and Parkinson's-like tremors on daily living activities for aging adults. We know students, of course, won't have access to the tremor simulator at home, but you can still teach the content. So here are the three parts in this lesson, and just pause for just a moment here. Okay, and it starts with the introduction, sharing information about tremor conditions. Then you move on to a tremor simulation experience, and you end with reflective questions. And all of this can be adapted to online format. So this lesson begins by sharing the 10 slides that you see on the screen in front of you, all about understanding tremor. And there's background information and the facilitator instructions that you have access to. So if you wanted to, you could download the PowerPoint into a Google Classroom or an LMS system or whatever works in your environment. You could even prepare your own lecture or video showing the slide with you reading the notes from the curriculum that accompany each slide in the background. So there's a lot of ways that you can share this content with your students. To find the notes that accompany the slide presentation, all you have to do is look at the focus section at the beginning of that lesson. And you could also give students access to that Tremor data sheet that you see that's also in the curriculum. This is the guide that they are going to fill out as they go through the slide presentation and the information that accompanies each slide. Now, if you don't want to lecture or provide that information in written format to students, you actually could turn it into a research project. Students could research the answers to the questions on the Tremor simulation or on the Tremor data sheet themselves, and they could turn it in. So you could do it either way, but that is available to you to provide to students as a handout. You could also share one or two of the videos from the International Essential Tremor Foundation. And this is really an excellent source of information. So the two clips that I have up for you up there are fairly short, 4 to 5 minutes in length. You could embed them in your LMS system or even embed them into your assignment on tremor conditions. So just another place you can go to get information regarding the topic. Now we know that you're teaching in an online situation, so students aren't going to have the Tremor simulator for home use. However, they can do something as simple as shake one hand vigorously, or they can shake both. You'll give your students access to a 2-page handout. It's called the Tremor Simulation Experience, and we will provide this to you after the webinar, but you'll also have access in the curriculum at the lesson that we spoke about. The purpose of the activity is to have your students experience age-related tremor. So students will gain a greater sensitivity and empathy for the impact that tremor conditions can have on daily living or daily life of older adults if they do it themselves. So you're going to gather the materials that you see. They're going to need a pen, paper, a pitcher of water filled with some water, glass, some coins if possible, a scissors, and a fork. And those are all common things that hopefully that they would be able to find in their homes. And then of course, you'll also give them the Tremor Experience Simulation handout. So again, to simulate tremor, all they have to do is shake one hand or both as they go through each of the daily living activities found on that handout. And as they go through each one, they are to complete the grid and answer the questions on that handout. So the final piece in this lesson is the reflective questions that can be used for a class discussion, or it could be a discussion in a chat area followed by a writing assignment, completing the Impact of Tremor Conditions reflection handout. So there's another handout in the lesson as well. The handout could be posted as an assignment in an LMS system or even emailed, but some of those key questions that we want them to really think about post-simulation are: what was the most difficult part of having a tremor in your hands and why? How did it impact your ability to function? How important is touch into daily life and why? So have them critically thinking about these things. And if you had to live with a condition, how would that impact your daily activities? And why do you think it's important for healthcare professionals working with geriatric patients to understand the impact of a tremor condition? Or even, why is it important if you have aging adults in your life, if this is going to be taught within like a human growth and development or interpersonal relationships type of unit? Why is it important to have that impact of tremor? Another optional class activity you could do is an interview with an older adult who has a tremor. One of the most powerful messages about how a tremor condition can impact your life will come from someone who's living with the experience. So if you know of an older adult with a tremor condition who is comfortable sharing his or her story, invite them to do so. You could video it, you could interview it and post it. You could invite students to submit questions prior to the interview. If you go on YouTube, you can also type in a keyword search under living with Parkinson's or Parkinson's interview with a patient, and you can actually get short videos of people that are dealing with this on a daily basis, and they're not even always geriatric patients. Some of them are younger adults too, living with Parkinson's tremor. So you could play those for your students or have them watch that to hear firsthand from someone that's experiencing it. So you have access again to all of those lessons and much more. And we've given you some ideas of things that you can try. So what do you do now? Well, I'd recommend, maybe start small, pick and choose maybe a couple of activities or lessons that you could give a try as an online exercise. Now, if you're looking for other hands-on resources to make your lessons come alive, you can certainly go to realityworks.com. We will be going back to a traditional setting at some point and teaching in person. And so make sure you're ready when the time comes to make your program as interactive and engaging as possible. So some of the different simulators and age simulation suites may be something that you'd like to tap into for when you can be back in the classroom. But for now, at least you know that your students can successfully learn a lot of this content even remotely. So Emily, I'm going to turn it back over to you right now to see if you've got some questions that have come up in the chat during the webinar today.
Yeah, one of the questions we have are all of these age related, or are any of these lifestyle or environment?
Today our focus was pretty much on a lot of the age related things that accompany these 3 different conditions that we spoke about.
Cool. And then could you just go over again about where to find the link that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation? We had a couple
yes.
come in late.
The link that I shared at the beginning, you just type into the internet and it takes you right to all of the curricula that Realityworks has available. To find these geriatric ones, you go under Family and Consumer Sciences, and there is a geriatric section there, and you simply click on that, and that will list all of the different curricula that you have available, and they're listed by product. So if you're interested in the arthritis one, or you click on arthritis, a hearing impairment is part of our hearing impairment one. Tremor is what it is. So they're very easy and easy to find once you click on that master link that will give you access to all of those online resources.
Okay, and then if you just want, I have a couple of people asking about what they will be receiving after this presentation. If you just wanted to go over that one more time.
I believe they'll be receiving a recording or a link to the recording of the webinar. They will also be given the link yet again that will take them to all of the curricula that we've spoken about. They will also be given PDFs of all of the handouts that we referenced, and there's also going to be a page that has all of the links that were on the slides as well, and a certificate of participation.
Yep, and then also, will you be providing any other webinars in the future?
Yes, if you look at our website under support, there is a webinar button, and any live upcoming webinars are listed under that. And then everything that we have archived or we've done in the past, we have archived and saved underneath the listing of the live upcoming webinars. So that's like an on-demand, if there's a topic that you have an interest in. Most of them run around a half an hour in length, and you can get all of your information for both upcoming webinars as well as any archived webinars on that site.
Awesome. And then one question is, will you be giving info on how to purchase this curriculum?
The curriculum is a part of the various simulators that we have on our website. We have a geriatric age simulation suite. It's a 9-lesson curriculum, and we showed you the table of contents earlier in the webinar. Also the sensory impairment kit, which is a trio of hearing impairment, tremor, and arthritis. All of those come with their own curricula as well. So, but right now, because of the coronavirus, we have opened up our curriculum, whether you are customers of ours or not, and you have access to these lessons to give them a try. And if you don't have the simulators, you could try the activities now, but when you're back in the classroom, you could purchase them at a later time and then use the simulation experiences live in class next fall even.
Okay, and then we have another question. Do all programs have simulated activities like this one that you're showing today in the presentation?
In the geriatric simulation suite curriculum, in the 9 lessons, most of those lessons have some kind of embedded experience that you're using parts of the suit to simulate things. All of the sensory impairment kits, obviously, they all come with a simulator. I picked these 3 because I felt like these simulation experiences worked very well in an online format and for students to try to do at home. Not all of the simulation experiences are going to work as well for students to try at home, but these three I thought really did lend themselves well to that environment.
Awesome. It looks like that covers all of our questions for this webinar.
Well, terrific, Em. And thank you everybody for participating today. You can be looking for that email to be sent to you shortly with all the items that we have told you that you would be receiving. And we really appreciate your time, and we hope that you find some of these the content and the activities very useful as you navigate through the rest of your semester. So thank you very much.